Hi. So in this video, we're going to be reviewing how to solve a quadratic equation. Mm. We have a couple of things that we have to take care, right? Again, a quadratic equation will have a quadratic term, and it could have other terms, like in this case, the constant term. Anytime that we're solving a quadratic equation, we are actually trying to find values for x. And because my exponent is 2, I should have two solutions. So my first step always should be to make sure that the x squared is positive. Now, if I only have the term square and the constant term, so the one without a variable, we can move the term square to one side, the constant term to the other one. Second step here is that if we're multiplying the x squared by something else, I'm going to divide by that first. Before I can take out the square root, I'm going to divide. So in this case, I got x squared equals to 20. Now, my next step is that I'm going to take the square root on both sides. And this is important to keep in mind that we're finding a value that I can substitute on the x squared. On the x squared equals to 20, I'm finding a value that I can substitute to that x, that when I square, give me 20. So let's review another one. Let's say I have x squared equals to positive 16. So that means that I can substitute for x, I can substitute 4 because 4 squared equals 16, but I can also substitute negative 4 because negative 4 squared equals 16, right? So I'm using this as an example so you can understand why it's important that on this next step, I'm going to put the plus or minus square root of 20. Now, on this case, that square root of 20 is simplified because 20 is 4 times 5, and the square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 5. Let's see what's happening when I have the quadratic term, and in this case I have the quadratic term, the linear term because it's the one with the variable 1, or the exponent 1, sorry, and a constant term. So in this case, anytime that I have the x squared or the variable square and the variable to the 1, I'm going to move everything to the same side of the equation. So I'm going to start by subtracting this 16x, and then I can subtract the 5 on the same step. So that means that in this case I have 4x squared minus 16x equals to 0, right? Because the 5 cancel out. Now, from here, I have x squared and x. That means that I can factor out an x. I can factor out an x, and in this case, I can actually factor a 4. So that means that I got x minus 4 equals to 0. Keep in mind that when I do this factoring, if I distribute again, I should have this same step here. So 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 4 is negative 16x. Now, I have a product of 4x times x minus 4 equals to 0. So the only way that this equals to 0 is that either x equals to 0, because then x 0 times 4 is 0, and 0 times whatever is x minus 4 is 0, or that the x minus 4 is 0, because then this is going to become a 0, and I have 0 times whatever is x times 4 is 0. So I can split this up as 4x equals to 0, so my factors equals to 0, each one. From here I can divide by 4, so I get a x equals to 0, or again I can add 4 here, so that means that x equals to positive 4. So my solutions here are 0 and positive 4. The next one, again, I have the square, I have the x, so that means that I gotta move everything to the same side of the equation. So I'm gonna start by subtracting the 7x on both sides, minus 7x. Now I got x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals to 0. Now that I have all three terms, I gotta factor this into two binomials. The binomials, on this case, that my leading coefficient is 1, because the coefficient of that x squared is 1, I can simply go and find two numbers that you multiply and give you 6, and that you add and give you negative 5. So in this case, we're going to have the parenthesis equals to 0 again. We have x times x. Remember that when I multiply the first one on the FOIL method, first one is x times x should give you x squared, right? And then this one over here, when I multiply them, should give you 6. So it should give you positive 6, so we know that both of them are going to be the same size. So two numbers that you multiply and give you 6, and then you add and give you 5. So are 3 and 2. So then I have minus 3, minus 2, right? Because again, if I multiply negative 3 times negative 2, that should give you positive 6. And then once I FOIL, I'm gonna have x times x, that is x squared, right? First, then outers, so x times negative 2, so I get minus 2x. Then inners on the FOIL, so negative 3 times x, so I get negative 3x. And then last, negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. And then if I simplify this, that's where I get that 5x that I have over here. Now, again, same method, same property. If this product, the only way that is zero is either that this is zero, so it doesn't matter what's that. If I have 0 times whatever is this, that's 0. Or that this second one is 0, so again, it doesn't matter what is this value, so this times 0 is 0. So I'm going to split that up as x minus 3 equals to 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. So that means that I get x equals to 3, or that x equals to positive 2, and those are my two solutions. So number 4, again, we have the x squared and we have the x, so that means that I'm moving everything to the same side of the equation. So I got 2x squared plus x minus 6. Keep in mind that it's going to be a lot easier for you to factor if your quadratic term is positive. Okay? So your quadratic term is positive, I will factor, it's going to be a lot easier. If it's negative, then I will move and change everything to the opposite, and it should give you more. Now, keep in mind that my leading coefficient now is not 1, so I cannot do what I just did on exercise 3. Now, I cannot just find two numbers and multiply 6 and subtract 1 because we have a leading coefficient here. Once we factor, I'm going to show you again the FOIL method that it should give you this. So, first method that I'm going to show you, I use what is called the box method, and I'm going to do like a small box like this one. Okay. I'm going to start by multiplying 2 times 6, and that's going to be negative 12. Negative 12x squared. Second step on the box method, I'm going to put those two numbers here. So the 2x and the negative 6. Right? And now I can go back. Something similar to what I just did on number 3 is that I'm finding two numbers that you multiply and give you 12 or negative 12, and use add or subtract to 1. Those numbers are going to be 4x and 3x, but it has to give you, when you add them, has to give you positive. So that means that the 3 has to be negative, because when you multiply them, they have to be negative 12. So now I'm going to put those numbers here. That's 3x. It doesn't matter the order, because what are we going to do next? So on this step, I'm going to find a common factor between the first two. So my common factor here is 2x. Then I'm going to do the same on the next one. So my common factor here is negative 3. Keep in mind that if this one in here is negative, you're factoring out a negative. So the first one is negative, you're factoring out a negative. And I'm going to find a common factor here on that column. So my common factor is there's x. And then I'm going to common factor here between 4x and negative 6. Again, because this is positive, that common factor will be 2. So that means that my factorization of this is 2x minus 3 times x plus 2 equal to 0. I know that there's other methods. This is one I think that is the easiest one that I found, but you can use whatever method you know. Now, keep in mind that when I FOIL, I'm multiplying 2x times x, so 2x times x has to give you 2x squared, and then negative 3 times positive 2 has to give you to negative 6. And then when I multiply 2x times 2, that's 4x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, so I have 4x minus 3x, that's the x. And again, same as the last two exercises, and can split this into factors. X plus 2 equals 0, 2x equals to 3, and divided by 2, so x equals to 3 half, or minus 2. I got that x equals to positive 2. Number 5, again, let's do the same thing. I'm going to multiply 6 times 2, that is 12x. Let's do the box here. And I'm going to put the 6x here, the 2 here. Again, two numbers that you multiply and give you 12. and you add and give you negative 7. In this case, it's negative 4x and negative 3x. I'm going to add those numbers here. And again, they have to multiply to 12x. Negative 4x times negative 3 multiplied to positive 12x, and then negative 4x plus negative 3x add up to negative 7x. Now again, I'm going to factor out here. So my common factor here is 2x. Then I'm going to factor out down here. My common factor there is negative 1. Again, keep in mind that if this term is negative, that means that I'm factoring out a negative. The same on this next, on that column down here. This is a negative, I'm factoring out a negative. Now, but before I get to that one, I'm going to factor here. My common factor here is 3x. And then my common factor on that last column is negative 2. So again, 2x minus 1 times 3x minus 2. Let's check this one again. 2x times 3x, 6x squared. Negative 1 times negative 2, positive 2. And then if I multiply 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. And then if I multiply negative 1 times negative 2, that's negative 3x. Okay? So negative 4x minus 3x is negative 7x. Again, I can go back. Let's erase this so I have the space. I can go back here and split this in 2x minus 1 equals 0. 3x minus 2 equals 0. So 2x equals to 1 divided by 2. And that x equals to 1/2. And for here, my plus 2 on both sides, I got 3x equals 2 divided by 3. X equals to 2/3. And those are my two solutions. Number 6, again, first step should always be to combine like terms. That should always be your first step. So I get minus 19x plus 10 equals 0. Second step to always look, I know that there's no, but if there's a common factor in this equation, I can divide by that, but there's no common factor because I have that 19. Okay? Again, let's do the box here. So I got 6 times 10 is 60x squared. So I'm going to put the 6x squared here, the 10 here, the 10 here. Now, two numbers that you multiply and give you 60, and you add or subtract and give you negative 19. Those numbers are negative 15x and negative 4x. So negative 15x times negative 4x is positive 60x squared. Negative 15x plus negative 4x is the same as negative 19. So again, I'm going to put those here. Again, it doesn't matter the order because at the end you're taking a common factor from both. I'm going to take the common factor here. So that's 2x. A common factor on the second one is negative 5. A common factor on the first column here is 3x. And a common factor here is negative 2. So I got 2x minus 5 times 3x minus 2 equals 0. Again, let's check. 2x times 3x, 6x squared. Negative 5 times negative 2, positive 10. And then I have 2x times negative 2 is negative 4x. And negative 5 times positive 3x is negative 15x. When I add them, it's the same as negative 19. Okay, so now I can split this up into the factors. 2x minus 5 equals 0. So plus 5 plus 5, 2x equals to 5. And then I can divide by 2, so x equals to 5 over 2. Or, then I have 3x minus 2 equals 0. So plus 2, I got 3x equals to 2. Then divided by 3, I got that x equals to 2/3. And that's it for this video. May the 4th be with you.